Welcome to this edition of Transform with TAS. I'm excited today to make a chocolate dish. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like chocolate, but I have people in my family who really love chocolate. So I thought I would adapt a bread pudding recipe. And so I've already started prepping some things, and we're gonna be back in the kitchen in just a moment, and I'm gonna tell you about my love affair with bread pudding. And not so much a love affair with chocolate, but for this person, I'll give them chocolate. I'll be right back. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about my love affair with bread pudding, but not so much of a love affair with chocolate. You know, a lot of people believe that if you're a female that you have to like chocolate. Well, I don't really like chocolate. You know, chocolate's a little bitter. But as you can see, I've already got some chocolate in my bread pudding mixture. What I've done is I have added some loaf bread, and I added some evaporated milk, about 2 cans of evaporated milk, and I added cocoa powder because I'm making this bread pudding for someone who likes chocolate. And so I never had bread pudding growing up. My mother never made it. And I was working with a young lady, and we went to a restaurant, and I was like, "What is that?" And they laughed at me. They were like, "It's bread pudding." I'm like, "What is bread pudding?" Because I'd never even heard of it. And so from there, I really began a love affair with bread pudding. And like with most things, you know, my mother will take it and make it hers. She'd never made bread pudding before. I introduced them to bread pudding, and then Mama became the queen of bread pudding. And we both cook bread pudding probably differently than most people. And of course, Mother feels that hers is the best. And, you know, I let her believe that because that's Mama. So what you've been seeing me do is just make sure I've got most of my lumps out as it relates to the bread that's been soaking in milk. I want to take a quick break, and then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, and then we will go from there. This is an interview that I have been trying to get for quite some time. I have been following this lady, Melissa Banks, on social media for years now. And every time I see her, of course, she's in pink. So you may say, "You're in pink, Dr. Taz." She's in pink. Well, we both got the memo. No, we didn't. But I know that pink is her color. And I love pink. And I said, I know Melissa's going to be in pink, so you got to be in pink also. Melissa Banks, she is a phenomenal master event planner. She's an entrepreneur. She's a motivational speaker. She's a coach. She's a radio host. She's a co-host of an Amazon show. She does it all. She is a brand ambassador. She does online or virtual events, in-person events. She does it all. She's been honored by her home state in Mississippi. But this woman, this phenomenal woman, is one that I want you to meet today. Even though she's had all of these successes that are very evident, I want you to understand that this just didn't happen overnight. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory for Melissa, and then Melissa's going to give you the real deal. Melissa, you know, she transitioned from working a job that was meeting her needs. She's raising her 2 boys, job meeting her needs. But then she had a little voice that said to her, have you ever thought about your own business? And she heard the little voice, and she kept going because her job at that point was lucrative. It was meeting all of her needs. Well, fast forward a couple of days or a couple of months, perhaps even a year. Then things shifted on her job. And as she says, her job was her plan A, B, and C. She didn't have another plan. So she heard that voice again. You're going to be an entrepreneur. I've got a dream in you. and I want you to bring it forth. And so she did. Fast forward, here we are today, and she is joining me on my show, Transform with TAS. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing, Toss. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. I tell you, I knew you were a master event planner, but when I look at your backdrop, I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So for all those who love pink, this is the lady that if you want something done with pink, she's your go-to person. And she does do virtual events. You don't have to be in Mississippi for her to help you. But putting that plug in for your business.
Thank you.
But Melissa, I've known you just, at a distance, and I've been fascinated by what you've done. I know you have your Dream by Design devotion, and I listen to you speak, and I read your social media. But I know something that perhaps the audience as a whole doesn't know, that even though you're this successful businesswoman who's taken other people up under her wing and helping to groom them for success, that your road to success wasn't easy. I believe you told me that you got married at the age of 17, and then within 6 months, your life changed. Would you mind sharing that with the audience?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that our entire journey builds us to who we are and where we're going to be. Yes, I got married at 17 years old to my only boyfriend that I had ever had. He was my boyfriend starting at 14 years old. 6 months into the marriage was the first time that he actually hit me. Now, when something happens for the first time, you don't go straight to, oh gosh, this is a problem, which you should, but you don't. Where I went was, he was sorry. This is never going to happen again. And we went on. Unfortunately, that wasn't the only time. So there were years, we were married 17 years, and it was 17 years of abuse for one reason or another. When you're in an abusive relationship, you start believing the words that they say to you. You start believing that you deserve what's happening to you. So it takes a while to get to where you can even see beyond where you are. So we were married for 17 years. We have 2 wonderful boys, but it was not an easy process. So everything is a journey. And we talked about this, Dr. Taz, that you have to go through a process to get you to where you're supposed to be. So even when I knew it was horrible, I was hiding the abuse from people that were close to me, because people can show up looking like $1 million, looking perfect, like nothing is wrong. We were this power couple in the public view, but at home it was horrible. And it was tearing my self-esteem down little bit each day. In fact, when I was first able to get away with my 2 boys, I wouldn't even talk in public. I wouldn't talk to people I didn't know. I basically only even had conversations with family, because all those years of abuse wasn't just physical. The physical stuff healed, but the mental and what was poured into my mind grew and stayed with me. So it was another process of getting to where I knew who I was. I was able to think for myself and think for my children, because I had 2 small children that I had to be parent to. And I didn't really know how to, because I just spent the last 17 years not able to think for myself.
Now, you talk about it's not just physical abuse, and the physical scars do heal, but that emotional, mental abuse, how did you begin to come out of that and move to the other side?
The first thing I did when I was finally able to get my voice and get out of the situation, and sometimes things have to really come to a head for you to even take the first step, right? And that's why I say to people right now is, you don't have to have the whole plan figured out, but you do have to take the first step. So when things came to a head, it became life or death for my children and myself, and I was able to physically escape the situation. Then I had to work on our mind. And I believe in getting the help that you need, because that's why they're there. That's what God put them there for. Those are the tools. So I took my boys and we went and got some help. So we did some counseling and some treatment there to help the mindset, not just mine, but theirs too, because they were in the situation as well as I was. So we started there. going to some counseling sessions and talking to someone about what we had went through. So once I started doing that, and I don't even want to paint a picture that getting out solved everything, because getting out did not solve everything, but it was necessary to get everything else started. So once we went through getting help mentally as I was building our new life and learning what we loved, I said to someone recently, I didn't even know what I'd like to watch on TV, because those decisions, I wasn't allowed to make those decisions. I didn't know what foods I preferred to eat because I didn't make those decisions. So I had to learn all of that. So it was all a process. But once we got through that process and started putting things together, fast forward, I was able to get a job that was, you talked about that earlier. So that was supposed to be our new life and our new way and our new out of raising my children.
Yeah, I'm taking notes, and I've got so many things I want to say. But let me ask this. While you were being victimized, victim of domestic violence at that time, were your boys ever hit physically by their dad?
Well,
And inappropriately, let me back up, let me clean that up a little bit. Inappropriately hit by their dad, because I know African Americans may discipline their children differently, but there is a difference between appropriate hitting, because the word that I want to say is whipping, but that's an old word. Nobody knows what I mean by that. But spanking your child versus overly spanking your child.
well, because he had an overly obsessive behavior, even when he disciplined them, it was always taken to a different level. It was not what I was getting, of course, but it was definitely taken to a different level. So something small would explode into something big. So he was definitely aggressive with them in their discipline. The abuse wasn't directly directed to them, but they suffered from it because something small was big when he disciplined them. That's why when it came to getting help, it wasn't just for me, it was for them as well, because they were also mentally abused, even though it wasn't directly delivered to them, but they were. So I had to deal with them and their mental state and how they came out of it, as well as my own. That's why the help was so important. I wasn't equipped to give them help. You can't give someone something you don't have, right?
No. And, as an African American, I'm glad that you're making that statement. Sometimes it's still taboo in our community to seek mental health counseling. And it really shouldn't be. And I applaud you for making the statement that you understood that you could not give your boys what they needed because you didn't have it to give, but you knew they needed it. And you sought help for yourself. You sought help for both of your boys. And then that really became seeking help for your family. And as I think about it, I think about sometimes there's a survivor guilt. What could I have done differently? But you did everything that you could during the time and then after the fact to make sure that your boys were secure in themselves, first of all, as a human being, and then got the emotional support that they needed so that hopefully the pattern doesn't repeat itself. And I applaud you for that. I often tell people, people defy generational curses in multiple ways, but I believe that one way that a generational curse occurs is because we don't seek the help. So therefore it becomes learned behavior. So mama did this, then I do it. Well, my children see me doing it, so then my daughter does it. And so we perpetuate that behavior because we don't break the cycle. And having you say for the audience that you knew that there was additional work that needed to be done versus just leaving the space. I think that's such a powerful thing. And as you said, you may not have the whole plan, but take the first step because that's important. Once you take the first step, then you'll begin to make steps after step after step and then move forward. Now, let me stop and ask this. Now, how are your boys now? Because I know that your boys, you've used their initials to name your business. So how are they doing?
My sons are amazing. They both, of course, it was a process for them as well, but they both are doing well, living in different states and doing very well, raising their families. I have one son who is an entrepreneur and stepped out in December of 2020, which is amazing to step out on your own business in 2020. So he started his own business. He's an amazing chef in his town that he works in. So I'm just really pleased with both of them. They're doing amazing, and I feel real proud.
Well, culinary is right to my heart. So I'm glad to know that he's going into that business. I may have to connect with him at some point because you just never know. But it's really good to know that they've both been very successful going about it in their own different way. And I know that they're very proud of all that you've accomplished. And I know it's a mutual admiration society, and as well it should be. Well, it should be. Now, let's just kind of fast forward now, because you're my lady in pink. So you didn't have a fallback plan. Your job, because you've come out of this situation and you've landed on your feet, you got a good job, you and your boys are in a good space, you got your supports happening for you, there are three of you. And then you realize that your job, which was your plan A, B, C, D on down through Z, is getting ready to be pulled from under you. So what was the first step into beginning to become an entrepreneur? What was that first step?
Well, I love sharing this story because, we think we have to have it all planned out, right? Well, my plan was this great job. This job offered a great salary. It offered the education. I was going to school. It was paying for that. And it was taking care of the family. It also provided profit sharing. So I was earning some money in the business. It was all in one, right? All my hat, everything was in that hat. But then rumors started circulating that it was some bad leadership and it was going to be a big layoff in the company. Well, there had been some small layoffs, didn't affect me much. But then the big layoff was coming and it was rumored that it was going to affect most of the employees. So as the rumors grew, one morning, I was headed to work that morning and I heard this small voice. Now, when I say that, people kind of frown. I don't mean I heard loud voices in my car. I felt it deep in here, but it was clear to me that I would own my own business. Well, prior to that, I had never considered that. I've never thought about that. I didn't know people personally that own their own business. I didn't grow up in that environment. So that was strange to me, but I heard it clearly, didn't think about it anymore. Fast forward, the day came where the rumor said the layoffs would happen. And I was laid off that day. Well, when I sat in my car, right after I walked out of that building, I heard that voice again. In the moment of that frustration, the tears, the fear, because I didn't know what I was going to do, right? I heard that voice again, that I would own my own business. Well, I didn't know what that meant, but I soon found out. I started looking into it. I started I do flower arrangements. That's what I'll do. I'll make flower arrangements and sell them, right? It's still so new, though. I didn't know how, but I didn't stop. That didn't stop me in the fact that I didn't know how. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, but I knew I was supposed to do it. And I just figured it out. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I worked really hard for little money because I really didn't know how to get it done. That's why I tell people right now, don't figure it all out. Start, get going, follow those urgings inside of you, because that urge, I tell people, that was my defining moment. I wasn't planning. I didn't dream all my life of owning a business, right? I didn't know what that was. But that situation pushed me into that, because sometimes we have to have something big to push us to be where we want to be. And that's what happened when I experienced that layoff. And that was 20 years ago. So my business have gone up, it's gone down, it's changed. It had a lot of turns in the road, but I believe it was placed here by God. And I believe that in my core. So I believe that he's already gone before me and straightened things out. I just have to keep going. And that's where I've been for the last 20 years, building my business and continuing to build my business.
I want to go back to just one thing first, and then I want to spring forward, because I think this is important for individuals to understand who are starting their business. I know that you trusted the wrong people. Now, when these people came, you thought they were the right people. If you could give your then self advice, what do you know now that would tell you they're the wrong people that you didn't know then?
Wow, that's a good question. Because, when people come to you and they present something to you that seems like it's really going to help you and seems like they really thinking about you because you know who you are and you expect everybody that come into your space to think and act and have the same morals that you do. Unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way that some of those people, their goal was to get, not to give. And so now today I discern who is in my circle. Everybody who wants to be in your space shouldn't be in your space. You have to determine, you have to follow those urgings. Over the years, and that's why I use every platform I have, you have to follow those urgings that God placed in you to say, then this is not the situation and this is not who you're supposed to be around. Back then, I thought everybody that was the way to make it, right? You get in these circles of all these people coming around and wanting to do things and you're going to collaborate and do this. But everybody is not supposed to be in your circle. Everybody is not supposed to be part of your journey. And everybody doesn't supposed to stay there. Sometimes somebody's brought to you just for that one particular thing. And that's all they were there for. So as you grow and mature and gain confidence, everybody who wants to be in your space, they're not supposed to be there. So just because they call you, and that doesn't mean I didn't make some more mistakes along the way and choose the wrong people in my space. But now I have a confidence and a discerning, and I know to follow that discerning, and I am obedient to that discerning. I know now I don't need 500 people around me. I just need people around me that support me, love me, and want to see me win. And I want to encourage them and see them win as well.
And it's what comes to mind is a mutual support society. And that's one way that you can begin to discern whether or not the people that are in your space need to remain there. Because you've said multiple key things, but I'll just home in on the one that I think maybe folks may need to take away. Everybody that comes doesn't stay. And I think sometimes that's the hardest concept for us to grasp and keep with us, because we make friends or we have acquaintances. They're there for a season. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you have to have the intellect and have the security within your heart to know to let the person go. Because if you're not growing and they're not growing, or if one of you are growing and the other is not, then you're not equally yoked. You were good for a season, and seasons could be years, seasons could be decades. But at some point, when the journey begins to shift for each person, you grow apart. It doesn't mean necessarily they were a bad person. It's just that it's time for them to take their ticket and go on their journey, and you take your ticket and you continue on your journey. And I think that, as a person who's still fairly new in the industry, I've been at this for a while now, but it is hard to discern the right individuals. And I know that you've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And so for those who are listening, you're going to make some mistakes. Everybody that I'm connected to, and I've been thinking as I look around, I don't think there's one person that I'm connected to who hasn't made mistakes, but we all learn from it. And so again, don't think it's been easy. Just because, Melissa's a diva and she looked all cute, don't think it's been an easy journey for her. That's right. So thank you for sharing that, Melissa. Now, I want to know, how have you managed to adapt? Because you started your business 20 years ago and you're going strong, you're fabulous. How have you managed to continually adapt your business and adapt who you are to the changing market space, and particularly coming out of COVID? When I look at what you've done in 2020, it seems to me as a bystander, your business just propelled itself, and you're still on an upward trajectory in 2021. So how have you continued to adapt over the years?
I think you said the key. You have to be able to adapt with what is happening. And I have this crazy belief that if I just keep moving, things will happen, right? When you stop moving, that's when it all stops. So I always have had that mentality, but when 2020 hit and coronavirus hit, it became more real to me that was so important. Because see, here we are, 2020 begins. I God gave me the vision of this amazing event, and I partnered with someone, and we put that event on in January, which was Black Women's Business Expo. I was so thrilled because my real passion is to inspire and encourage women to move forward on their dreams. So to have this amazing event hit January 2020, business went crazy. Books were booked. But then March happened, and we all know what happened in March. I'm an event planner, event industry, took a huge blow. So now my business went from booked to zero. I literally did not have a plan. I did not know what to do at that point. But what I did is one night, I continued to pray. I continued to kind of try to figure things out. But one night, right before getting in bed, I get an email from David Tatera. I don't know if you're familiar with David Tatera, but he is a celebrity event planner. Most people know the TV shows, everything. And I get an email from him inviting me to a challenge that he was doing. It was a 5-day challenge. And I thought, well, what else do I have to lose? Well, it costs $99. Well, when you're afraid of money, $99 even seemed like a lot, right? But yes. I said, you know what? I'm going for it. I signed up for that program. And then it said, you can get VIP if you pay $50 more, and you get to work directly with David. Well, I went there too, right? Which one of the best decisions I ever made. My point to sharing that was we have to take some steps in order for something to happen. Because that yes to that opportunity changed everything the rest of the year. Working with David Tatera, I ended up being awarded a free scholarship to be mentored by him for 12 months, not just for 30 days, not just for 5 days. It developed into that. The ambassadorship developed. Talk shows came out. It's so many different things from that yes. So I say to anybody, you have to believe enough in yourself to take that risky yes. Because for me, my money was gone, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. But wow, when I said that yes. So the key is to believing in yourself, to keep moving and bet on you. That's who you bet on. You bet on you. And you get up every single day with your dream and plan in mind, and you take some action steps because it's the action that changes things.
Melissa, you have blessed us today. You have given us so many nuggets to take away. I'm making notes for myself. Believe in yourself. Take the risk. You did a $99 and it was $50 more. And then you saw your life just continue to go on that trajectory when others were trying to figure out how they're going to manage. Because you're right, you're in the service industry. And so many opportunities open up. You got a scholarship. You're being mentored by him for a year. And I hazard a guess. Now, this is just me. That mentorship role is going to continue because he knows you. He's vested in you and you're vested in him. So he came to you. We talk about recognizing seasons and when people are supposed to come and when they're supposed to go. He came to you and you saw it. And now we see what the results are of that. When I think about what 2020 has been for you, it warms my heart because it gives me inspiration. And I hope it gives the audience inspiration that regardless of what the circumstances are, in a pandemic, you have come out of the pandemic better than where you were, and you were in a good space. Believe you me, because I remember all the advertisement about the conference, and it was fabulous. But you're in a better space after the pandemic. And for those who know, I do have, the religion that flows through me. To God be the glory. Because to me, he has to be praised for that. Because you were able to discern, take the risk, bet on yourself. And how many times do we bet on other people, but we don't bet on ourselves? So thank you so much for joining me. I can't say thank you enough. And the words that I'm going to leave with the audience is learn to bet on yourself. We bet on other people all the time. But what would happen if we learned to bet on ourselves? Thank you so much, Melissa Banks, our master event planner. I'm going to say event planners to the stars because if it's not quite there yet, you're going to be there because you've made the connection that's needed to pull you in that direction. So thank you so much for being a part of our show today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And we're back. I took a quick break because I wanted to make sure that I melted the margarine. So what we're going to do is we're going to just continue to add our ingredients. I'm going to go ahead for this particular dish. This person likes walnuts, so I chopped up about a cup of walnuts. So we're going to sprinkle them in. And so as I was saying before I break, my mother now, I call her the queen of bread pudding, even though she never made bread pudding when I was growing up. And, with bread pudding, I think the person that introduced me to it said that, folks used to make bread pudding because they would take leftover bread and, they would then add margarine or butter. They were probably adding butter. Now, we're going to add some light margarine. But they would add butter, they'd add sugar and flavoring to it, and basically it became a dessert. And so people really liked bread pudding. Well, since I've learned to make bread pudding, I realized that it comes in many different textures. There are many variations, and I don't even know if my variation is one that anyone else really makes. I see the cube bread pudding, which is good if you like cubed bread pudding. Sometimes I have a problem with certain textures, and because I wasn't introduced to bread pudding that was cubed, I've never really liked it that way. Now what I'm gonna add in, as I told you, I've already put some cocoa in here, but this person really likes chocolate. So, chocolate has a lot of health principles. So because of that, I said, what the heck? I'm gonna give them a cup of chocolate morsels. Ooh, you hear that chocolate falling. I guess I could almost see why people like chocolate. But I don't like chocolate. But it's, to each his own. And so, because I know they like chocolate, they really like too much chocolate, I decided that I wouldn't melt it. I'm going to just stir in the morsels. And that way, as the bread pudding is cooking, it will just melt throughout. So hopefully every time they take a bite, they'll have a little bit of chocolate along with a nut. Now I'm going to add, yes, it's 1/4 cup of vanilla flavoring. Now you may say, why did you add so much vanilla flavoring? Because I'm still trying to add flavor to this bread pudding because I'm not using butter and I'm going to use light margarine. And so I want the person to enjoy it. I'm also going to add some sugar substitute. I'm using this person's favorite sugar substitute instead of what I would use for myself because they say that my sugar substitute has an aftertaste. So I don't want them to say it has an aftertaste, and if it has an aftertaste, I can tell them I used your sweetener. Ooh, the sweetener is coming up in my nose, going up through my nostrils. And I can actually taste it. Isn't that interesting? The fumes, even though there's nothing flying, they are coming up. And I'm tasting it. But that's okay. Now, this is a grown person. Y'all don't know what that means. They're an adult. So, because again, chocolate and liqueur goes well together, I thought I would just give them a 1/2 cup of Irish cream just to make them feel good. Just to make them feel good. Gotta have a little something sometime. And they're an adult. So I'm gonna give them a little Irish cream here. Oh, this is beginning to look good. Now, I almost want to taste it. Did I bring myself I did not, but that's okay. I'm not going to taste it because I don't have to taste it because this is not for me. And I did keep asking the person, how do you want this? Do you want it this way? And they said, well, you're the cook. I'm just going to consume. So I've just added in about 3/4 cup of melted light margarine. Because even though this is a healthy dish and the light margarine is good, I still have got to have a little moisture there, that oil, because without it, it's going to be dry, and we don't want the bread pudding to be dry. Now, if I had planned to taste it, which I really did not plan to taste it, I would have to taste it now, because the last ingredient that I'm going to add before we put this baby in the oven is going to be egg whites. Instead of using eggs, I'm going to use egg whites instead. So I have here 3 egg whites, and I'm just going to pour it in. We're going to stir this up. And I'm putting the egg whites there because I do need for this to set. I need for this to come back together in a different form. And so it's a little liquidy. And I think I've got enough egg whites. We'll see. If I don't, it'll be okay, because that means it will just be a different version of bread pudding. My bread pudding, you can normally slice it. And sometimes people think when I do the chocolate bread pudding that they're eating brownies, but no, it's bread pudding. So this is mixed pretty good here. So next, I'm going to pour it up in this casserole dish that I have already sprayed with some cooking spray, because I wanted to make sure it didn't stick. And I'm looking at this dish and I'm looking at this bread pudding. And I'm like, okay, is this dish big enough? If not, we'll do something with the leftover. We're going to pour this in. Oh, this is going to be a little bit more than I thought. I don't particularly like for my bread pudding to be but so thick. And because I don't, I'm not going to force it. I'm going to put this in another container. Now what you're seeing here is it really doesn't take as much as you think. So we're going to shake this and make sure it's kind of even. We're going to put this casserole dish in the oven, and then we're going to bring it out. So we're going to take this over to our oven. And I've already preheated the oven to 375. And we're going to put this in. And we're going to let it do its due. And we'll check back on it. So we've put the bread pudding in the oven. And we'll check back on it in about 35 minutes to see what we've got. Now today we have made chocolate bread pudding. It was in the oven for about 45 minutes, 375 degrees. Now the thing is, you always just need to do the toothpick test, and that's what I did to make sure that it was done. Also, if you look at this one, you can see that around the edges, the bread pudding has pulled away from the side, which is also signaling that it's done. And of course, it's now kind of broken little cracks. Well, I'm ready to taste it, and it's cool enough now that I can at least touch the handles. But before I taste it, I thought I would call Mama. You know, she's that queen of bread pudding. She may not even answer the phone because, you know, she just gets so something sometimes. See if I can get her on the phone. And I wanted to taste it with her because, you know, I've done this one a little differently. So I'm going to be cutting. Which side do I think I'm going to cut over here. It's not broken. This will make a nice serving here. So I'm going to cut this. Oops. Do you know I'm getting their voicemail? Well, they don't have voicemail. I'm getting their answer machine. Isn't that nice? I guess they said they're not going to talk to me. Well, you know, I'm not going to talk to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep slicing my bread pudding. And we're going to disconnect from them. So I'm going to now, let's put this here. I'm going to bring out a slice of bread pudding. Now, just look at that. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but just look at that. You see where I did those morsels of chocolate? Oh, that looks good. The morsels of chocolate. Oh. So we're going to put this on this dish. And I just got to let you see it again on the dish. I know you're like, why is she whispering? Well, you just don't know what you're going to get. You see how beautiful that looks? See those morsels of chocolate? Oh, the chocolate right there is just melting so nice. It's decadent. Well, even though I'm not a chocolate lover, I got to try this to see what it tastes like. So I'm going to be brave. Oh, I think I got a little nut right there. Oh, I did. Oh, you see the steam? I know y'all thought, well, she just saying that she can touch it. But do you see that steam rising off of this bread pudding? You know this is still hot. I got to be careful. You see the steam? Let me blow. Now this, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like chocolate, but I do like nuts. And even though we put what would be the equivalent of a cup of artificial sweetening, I'm going to be honest. If you're one of those people that got to watch your sugar, I've watched your sugar because this is really not very sweet. But I'm gonna tell you this, it's good. And I don't eat chocolate, but this is good. It is light, fluffy. Somebody gonna say she don't eat chocolate, she about to eat all this. It's kind of good. So, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm gonna take one more bite and then we're gonna close this episode out because pretty soon I'm gonna be ate all these people chocolate. See that chocolate there? I'm gonna be ate all day chocolate bread pudding. It do make you a little jiggy, just a little bit. But oh, I got a lot of chocolate that time. It makes you do a little jiggy. If you like chocolate, and you like bread pudding, this is the dish for you. It's not over the top sweet. It's good. And the walnuts really kick it up because you got that texture contrast. You got the soft. You got the morsels that are lightly melted. And then every now and then you'll get a crunch from a walnut. This is good. You see, I've almost eaten this whole little piece. I'm gonna have to back up off of this because I'm not trying to gain no weight. But this is good. And I guess they said, she really do like this. I never tried the chocolate stuff that I made because I don't like chocolate. But this is good. I'm gonna put this down. Like a walnut. I'm gonna put this down. Let me finish this. I want y'all to know this is real. I'm making this. It's good. And let me tell you about my bread pudding. It only gets better once it's cold because then it actually firms up even more. So, this is going to be good. Now, today we've had a fascinating interview and we have been in the kitchen cooking chocolate bread pudding with walnuts. It's really good. You've seen me almost devour that whole slice. So if you need a chocolate fix, I just thought about what makes this really good. I forgot. It's got Irish cream in it. That's the reason it is so good to me. Because I do like that Irish cream flavor. So think about it. Chocolate, Irish cream, walnuts, it don't get any better than that. So now if you want me to transform your recipe, you know what you have to do. You've got to send me an email to transformwithtas@gmail.com. Put recipe in the subject line. Make sure you include your first and last name and of course the recipe. And you never know when your recipe may be featured on Transform with TAS, where we are feeding our bodies healthy foods that are good foods, but kind of bad, healthy, good, bad food. And we are feeding our soul. Until next time, as always, take care of you so you can take care of someone else. Bye now.